Hi, in this video I have a Rubik's Cube. It is broken. What has happened is one of the legs here has snapped off and obviously all the pieces have fallen out. Now I could use super glue to repair it, but unfortunately it would be brittle. What that means is that once it's glued, if I drop it, you'll find that this will break off. So yes, I could use these type of glues, the Q bond or the powder bond. It would hold it, but I don't think it would be a long-term solution because these two types of glues leave a brittle bond. That means that if I knock it or drop it, it will probably crack and the piece will fall out again. So in this video, I'm going to be doing a type of plastic welding. That means I have a soldering iron. So over here, I have my soldering iron. I've set it to about 350 degrees and I'm going to weld the piece back on, and that is what I'm going to be demonstrating. Right, so the broken piece is here. I'd like to get as much space as possible. So in this case, I can open the little cap here. For example, if I remove these, I might find that these caps actually pop off. Like there's a cap that's popped off. Well, I'm going to remove the cap from this one. The reason why I'm going to remove this cap is just so that I've got more space, because as you can see, it's a bit snug in there. You don't have to follow this step, but I'm just doing it so it's easier to video. Right, this is a star, but I can just open this with my fingers. Just be careful that the spring doesn't pop out. So I'm just going to now reinsert this post here for the reason that I can hold on to this while I do the plastic welding. Okay, so there we go. I'm also just going to remove this red one over here. So now I have some space to work. I will remove this blue one as well so that at least it can be flush on the table. Again, this is not mandatory, it's just best for the video. Right, so that's perfect. Now all I need to do is mount this onto that. See, there we go. At this point, you can use a tiny bit of super glue just to hold it in place. Right, so just put a drop of super glue here on this paper. And then I just dip my screwdriver in the super glue and almost paint it on. And now I can take this side and just make sure it's the right way around. I know it's the right way around, judging by the formation of the crack. You can see that it's bigger on the one side and the plastic protrusion is bigger on the one side. Right, and I can just hold this in place. Now the reason I use the super glue is not to fix it, but just to hold it in place so it's easier for me to do the plastic welding. Right, so now I can get started with the plastic welding. So what I do is I take my soldering iron and I just poke it a little bit. As you can see, I've made a little dent there in between the two sides. Right, so now I'm going to do that again. And now what I'm doing is I'm almost brushing it down. And just be careful not to touch the edges here with the shaft of the soldering iron, otherwise it'll burn here and it'll deform it. So I make sure that when I do engage the soldering iron onto the plastic frame here, I don't come at an angle that would touch this post over here or this cube over here. Right, so what I'm doing is I'm in effect painting it. Right, so I'm going to now go to the opposite side and do the same thing. It's like I'm painting it closed. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to remove this side so that the camera has a better view. Right, so I'm doing the same thing here. It's like I'm painting it closed. So I start from the side and I don't hold the soldering iron on for very long. I'm just painting it downwards. So I'm taking the flat side of the soldering iron and just painting towards the bottom or the edge there. I'm doing the same with the other side. It doesn't matter if it looks like a mess, this is all hidden. Right, now that I've done that type of painting, it's actually held in place. But what I want to do is I want to make it stronger. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a little bit of donor plastic. So this is an old toothbrush, and I'm just going to melt a little bit of this plastic and paste it over here or weld it over here just to build up this area. Right, so there's my donor plastic and I'm melting it into the groove here. Right, so it looks like a bit of a mess, but don't worry. Now it's time to melt it into that frame. So I'm still doing that painting. I'm now just holding on for a little bit longer. And I'm actually mixing them together. Right, so I'm holding the soldering iron for a little bit longer now. Right, now I'm going to fix this side. I'm holding it on here, melting, making sure not to burn through the original frame. It's very strong now. It's definitely not brittle. If I have to throw this on the table, it won't break. Maybe these caps will fall off, but this shaft will not come off now. Yeah, as you can see, I'm really not worried. There you go. It is not brittle at all. As you can see, I'm tapping it, and this thing is in place. Right, so I just want to clean it up now so that I can reassemble this. Right, so for smoothing it out, I just make this a bit hotter, and all I do is I do that painting again, but now intentionally trying to smooth it. So over here it's a bit raised too much, so I'm just smoothing it out. Right, so I've smoothed it out, and I've got to make sure that this can move in and out here, otherwise the Rubik's Cube won't work properly. My advice is, when rebuilding the cube, don't make these tight yet. First want to get all the pieces in place, so at the moment I'm keeping these a bit loose. Right, so now I just need to tension it according to what my preference is. But as you can see, the cube is already functional. Now I like it a little bit more on the tighter side. And I've got a sample cube here just to test. I can also test by just seeing how deep that screw is recessed. For example, I can see that the screw is about 2.5 mils recessed. So I can see that's fine. This one is a little bit loose. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Right, so the cube is now set. Right, so there's the cube. You can see that it is now sorted out. And even when it's dropped, as you can see, it's fixed. Here is another one that I repaired. I used the plastic from a scraper. You could use a file to just smooth out some of the edges. Most important is that it is not built up too much, otherwise the individual cubes will not be able to move past here. Right, so I'm just going to lubricate it. I just use a silicone spray, and then I take a 90% rubbing alcohol and just wipe away the excess lubrication. Right, and it's good as new. Thanks for watching, and cheers.